Tonight, developers are told to pay up to fix the cladding crisis. 4.5 years after the Grenfell Tower fire, the government aims to get tough on firms, it says, have profited by cutting corners.
To those who missold dangerous products like cladding or insulation, to those who cut corners to save cash as they developed or refurbished people's homes, and to those who sought to profiteer from the consequences of the Grenfell tragedy, we are coming for you.
Thousands of people across London are still trapped in unsafe homes. These plans, they say, are a step in the right direction to relieve anxiety.
Today, that weight is lifted partially off my shoulders, but the devil is in the detail. We need to see how much of the cladding cost will be covered by today's announcement.
So how will the government convince developers to pay up? And why has it taken so long to get to this point? We'll have the latest and the analysis. Also ahead, 2 million cases of COVID in the capital since the start of the pandemic, but hopeful signs London is over the worst of Omicron. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Why young people here are speaking out against the police publishing images of knives, and Buckingham Palace launches a competition to bake the perfect Platinum Jubilee pudding. We sent Sally to have a go at making one. Good evening. Ever since the Grenfell Tower fire killed 72 people, those living in high and medium-rise buildings covered in cladding have been going to sleep in homes they fear are unsafe. They can't sell their properties, and they've been threatened with huge bills for corrective work. Today, the government demanded that developers pick up the costs. The Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, said no leaseholder living in a block above 11 metres would have to pay to fix building problems which weren't their fault. It's been welcomed by some as a step in the right direction, but there are still questions over how the government will make developers pay and how quickly. Martel reports.
This could be another Grenfell. Covered in flammable material, these homes in Tower Hamlets are deemed so dangerous they can't be sold on.
We're living in a potentially dangerous building. Your home is supposed to be your safe place.
Paul Afshar only has a 25% stake in his shared ownership flat, but currently has to pay 100% of the cost to make it safe. Now, more than 4.5 years after the fire that killed 72 people, the government wants builders to fix the cladding.
After nearly a year of sleepless nights and anxious worrying about whether a bill for £30,000 or £40,000 was going to drop on my doorstep, today that weight is lifted partially off my shoulders, but the devil is in the detail. We need to see how much of the cladding cost will be covered by today's announcement.
We must relieve the burden which has been unfairly placed on leaseholders.
This afternoon, some straight talking from the Housing Secretary directed at the building industry.
To those who missold dangerous products like cladding or insulation, to those who cut corners to save cash as they developed or refurbished people's homes, and to those who sought to profiteer from the consequences of the Grenfell tragedy, we are coming for you.
In a letter to developers, government wants them to remove unsafe cladding from buildings under 18 metres, fund all the remediation work on buildings over 11 metres, and provide information on all high-rises with historic safety defects. But on many buildings, cladding is not the only problem. Here in Stevenage, there's more expensive work under the surface, like flammable insulation.
Until we are able to cover non-cladding related costs, there's still going to be huge life-changing bills sitting with the leaseholders. For example, mine's going to be around £60,000, which isn't a number I can just find.
This government announcement is a step in the right direction, but its success rests on developers handing over billions of pounds voluntarily, and many fear that simply won't happen. The Home Builders Federation, who represent developers, say they're already about to pay new taxes that the government's introducing this year.
We've got a new building safety levy. We have a residential property developer tax. All of these are designed to collect money to support the remediation of buildings. And we're willing to have the conversation again. But at some point it would be interesting and good to involve others as well.
Over in Woolwich, residents at the Royal Artillery Quay development aren't getting their hopes up.
I can see how developers wouldn't want to pay up unless they have to, or none of these companies would want to pay up unless they have to. And they can play the long game of pointing fingers at each other whilst we are trapped in our homes, unable to sell, unable to pay for interim costs, and suffering with serious mental health consequences.
Back in Tower Hamlets, the housing group responsible for Paul's flat say work to repair the building are scheduled to start sometime later this year. But for all leaseholders, the wait to make their homes safe continues.
So, Rags, will today's announcement fix the problem?
Well, every leaseholder we spoke to today said the same thing. It's a step in the right direction, but it doesn't go far enough. One, it only covers cladding. So as we've seen in the Grenfell inquiry, often the problem is much deeper than that, including things like flammable insulation. Two, money. It's estimated it will cost £15 billion, and so far we're not even halfway there. And three, this will probably end up in a legal fight because developers have always argued they met the building regulations at the time, so have done nothing wrong. So some developers won't pay, and some developers have gone out of business, so there's no one to pay. Grenfell United, the Bereaved and Survivors Group, told us tonight we have waited too long for change, and we need justice.
OK, Rags, a really complicated situation. Thank you.